And this testimony comes by way of TEOTW Ministry. I want you to go to YouTube, type that in. You can see it scrolling below. And I want you to go there. I want you to like, to share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos that they're going to be putting out in the future. I'm telling you, it's a binge-worthy YouTube channel that you want to definitely get involved in. So this testimony came directly from TEOTW Ministry, and it's about other individuals who have been enlightened, those individuals who have been awakened to who they truly are in Yah. Hallelujah, in the Most High. So enjoy this testimony and be encouraged.
Hey everybody, my name is Robert, and I want to give an explanation for my testimony of me coming into the truth of who I really am, my true identity in the Most High's family. And a little background. I'm the product of a broken family. My mother and father divorced when I was real young. I think it was a long process of them being in separation and then finally getting a divorce. But during this time of the divorce, I grew very close to my grandmother. And she had this friend that used to come over called Ma Hattie. And my grandma Lou, they would just talk for hours and hours about the past and about the good Lord, as they called him then. So me being a very inquisitive kid, asked her about the good Lord. So she basically told me, gave me a breakdown of who he was at that time, I guess, so my young mind can understand and how to get in contact with him. Because I was like, well, I want to know him too. And she said, well, go to a quiet place and just say, here I am, Lord, or God. But back then it was good Lord for me. So I did what my grandmother told me. I went outside and laid in the middle of the front yard, which we lived in the country. And I looked up and said, here I am, good Lord. And I promise you, he spoke to me during that time. And it's like I could see an invisible circle coming down every time he spoke to me. It's like a circle come down like that. It'd be right in front of my face. And I thought this was normal because my grandma told me to do this. And one day when I was out in the front yard talking to him, I heard some of my family members asking, because I think most of them were sitting on the porch. And they said, what is Baba doing? Because that was her name my mom had, it gave me. Baba. As you can see, big boy loved to eat. And he said, what is Baba doing? And my grandmother said, leave that boy alone. He out there talking to the good Lord. So that was one of my first experiences with the good Lord. And that grew over time till I started listening to his voice and doing what he told me to do. So fast forward to this time, I've always been close to the Lord, the good Lord, or the Most High now. And he's always spoken to me. Although I haven't always listened, like most men, I got myself into my fair amount of trouble. But here, and also my mother raised us in the church. From the time she was divorced from my father, she ran to the church, I believe, for support and an anchoring to her new foundation, which she married my father young, so that's all she knew. But anywho, up until now, well, I'm going to tell you when I first came into the truth. Like I said, I've always been part of the church, but had fell out of going to church because it just wasn't doing it for me anymore. So the neighborhood I was living in, I was walking to the corner store and saw this little house church sitting in the neighborhood, and the Most High told me to go and check them out. And as I went to the place, I was filming because I was doing what I called putting people on blast, telling about the good things they was doing in our neighborhood on my internet page. So I came to the door, and he was like, the pastor there was very shocked, like, can I help you? And I told him what I was doing and that I would like to interview him and know what good he was going to do in this neighborhood because he was new there. So we sat down and talked, and everything sounded good at the point, and we started attending that assembly, me and my wife. And as time goes by, I think we attended that assembly like 3 years. I began to ask questions, and I asked the pastor, what did he think about us being the real children of Israel? And he was like, well, I'm gonna have to look into that. And I said, okay. So not too long after that, we did a study in Revelations. And now I think it was a study to see what I really knew about the Bible and where was my questions coming from. And basically, I guess to see if we can come to an answer together. And maybe I'm just putting too much on it, but that's what I took from it. So during this study, I came out and asked the question, well, with all this going on, don't it seem to make sense that we're the children of Israel that the word is talking about? And the room got quiet. Mind you, this was in the Bible study. And I asked the pastor, what did he think? And he threw the question back on me. He was like, well, what do you think, Brother Robert? And I was like, I know we are. So by this time, I was pretty convinced that I wasn't going to get any answers out of this assembly. So I left. I stopped going for a minute. So I think the Most High was telling me that he didn't want to leave loose ends. So he had me go back to that assembly maybe 6 months later, I believe, and ask the same question, but this time with Deuteronomy's 28 and 68 about the ships. And that pastor told me that was just a saying, as far as it wasn't ships. It was just a saying that was their means of transportation back in the time. I said, well, why didn't they say camels instead of ships? Because there's no way they needed ships to move a whole nation of people to the promised land. I mean, from where they were into Egypt. From the promised land back into Egypt, I guess you would say. But anywho, he couldn't answer the question. He said that he needed time to study it. And I'm like, well, you said you was going to study it before, and you did. So this time, that was my done deal, and I left that assembly. So basically, my awakening was through a pastor, a Christian pastor, who refused to answer the questions that I had concerning our true identity. That and my mother, she's a preacher also. And every time I would ask questions about this, she had to leave. She had to get off the phone. Something was more important. But when she wanted to preach and teach me, it was my duty out of respect to her as my mother to sit there and listen. But I am so grateful for this ministry and other ministries that's online that have taught me, that have led me through the Ruach HaKodesh into all truth. And now that I know who I am, I'm totally free and ready to carry on the mission that the Most High has for me. Thank you. Shalom.